Hello, everyone. Welcome to Desktop Central Training Program. I thank everyone for joining the training session in a busy schedule. So before we move on to the training, I would like to get a quick confirmation for the audio and presentation. Please confirm in the chat window whether my voice is audible and you can view the presentation as well. Thank you all for the confirmation. Let me introduce myself. So my name is Felix, associated with ManageEngine Zoho Corp, and I will be the trainer today for this training program. Let's see the schedule for today's training. As you all know, it is a 5 weeks of training program, and we are in the last week for configurations. All these trainings are recorded and available in the link shown in the presentation below, which is desktopcentral.com/training.html. You can make use of it later if needed. So here is the agenda for today's training. First of all, I will start with the Desktop Central architecture, how multiple sites can be managed using this application, also how to simplify the administrator task and automate the configuration deployments. Based on the support experience, I have taken a few scenarios to handle the security concerns and fixing the vulnerabilities using Desktop Central configurations. If you have any questions during this training, then you can request in the chat window. Our experts panel sitting next to me who will answer the questions raised in the chat window. For the better audience experience, questions will be discussed at the end of this session. What is Desktop Central? Desktop Central is a unified endpoint management solution that helps in heterogeneous device management. What exactly is a heterogeneous device management? You can manage desktop, laptop, servers, and mobile devices, including tablets and point-of-sale devices in a single console and connected manner. Let me explain the workspace changeover from legacy to modern management. The recent part has witnessed the exponential growth on the modern management. However, Desktop Central tracks the balance between the legacy and modern management. The legacy is based on device-centric approach, and the modern management is focusing on user-centric approach. And now we are going to see how the Desktop Central handles both the management. At first, you guys are now familiar with the UEM edition, where Desktop Central and mobile device management is included. And in the UEM edition, OS deployment is provided for all the managed workstation and servers. And one advantage here is the modern management for Windows 10 computers. So what does the modern management provides? And this modern management is available only in the UEM edition. So there are 6 to 7 configurations that is available from the modern management. To name a few: location tracking of the Windows 10 laptops and computers, a complete wipe, corporate wipe, applying the restrictions, distributing apps. So these are the functionalities are included in the modern management. And again, all you need is one license where you get all the components that can be managed in a single installation. Supported operating system. Desktop Central supports all 3 major operating systems: Windows, Mac, and Linux operating systems. And here you may see a list of our type of versions that we are supporting in the Desktop Central. So this is my company's infrastructure, and I'm an administrator for the head office. Machines are available in the local LAN. Also, there are two remote offices, New York and San Francisco. And I have a handful of roaming users, sales users. So how can we manage all the devices from a central location? The component, a server and agent. Desktop Central is a client-server architecture, and it is an agent-based solution. The server needs to be installed on a dedicated Windows operating system based on the system requirements. And similarly, agent needs to be pushed out to all the workstations, regardless of the operating system. So here is the architecture diagram. So assume that the Desktop Central server installed on the local LAN. Now I have computers that I wanted to manage using the Desktop Central. How I'm going to add the local area network to this Desktop Central server. So let me go to the portal. I trust you all know about the Desktop Central. Once the server is deployed, you can remotely access the portal using the browser and log into the portal. Now I'm going to add a domain or workgroup. Go to the admin domain and adding a domain here. So this provides an option of adding Active Directory and workgroup-based domains. So Desktop Central can handle multiple domains. Multiple workgroups can be added in a single instance. You may choose Active Directory as an option and enter the domain details. And credentials are mandatory. This credential is used for installing an agent. And we recommend to use the domain admin credentials until the agent installation completes. And again, this credential is also used for pulling the Active Directory reports. And entering the Active Directory domain name and domain controller name. So let's say the IT administrator is new to the organization. He can get the information from the colleagues, or there is an option from the command prompt. So you may enter the command set u. It is going to provide the details that is required for when adding a domain. And if you're not sure about the domain controller, again, that's very simple. Using another command, which is set logon server. That's going to provide the domain controller for this particular machine. So now I can very easily find the domain details and put the information in here, even if you go wrong, and we have mechanism to explain you what data that needs to be changed so that you can successfully add the domain. For the workgroup, you need to add the domain name. It could be workgroup or it can be any other name as well. Add the domain username. That is going to be an admin username, a local administrator that's available on all the computers part of the workgroup. And the credentials should be common. Only then the Desktop Central can remotely push out the agents to the workstation. So now I have successfully added the domains. As you can see, there are a list of domains added here. The next part is agent installation. I've added the domain. So the purpose of adding a domain and workgroup is to fetch the computer names available from the Active Directory, from the domain controller. Also, we can discover the computers available in the workgroup. So using the computer names, the Desktop Central can remotely install the agents. So that is one of the options, a remote agent installation. It is also called as a push installation. I'm at the portal. Go to the admin and scope of management. And then here's the computers tab. So this is a place where I can add the computers from the domain. I can select the domain. It is going to provide the list of computers available. I can select the required OUs, maybe from the OU, it's going to list all the computers for me. Now I can choose the computers. If it is a work group, you can choose the work groups and add the computers. You can use Add Computers Manually option and enter the computer names here. And if you want to add multiple computer names, just have a comma separated between the computer names, and then hit enter, and both the computers are going to be added in the selected list. And you can click on next, and then it is going to proceed installing the agent. Or you may also add the computer names first. So once the names are added, from the Computers tab, and you can see the list of computers with the grayed out icon. I can select the computer names in here and install the agent. So what are the criteria required for remote agent installation? The Desktop Central server requires admin share privilege on all the workstations. So the given credentials should have the privilege in accessing the admin dollar. If you find any error message and you may see read KB, you can make use of the read KB in order to resolve it. Also, there are two other agent installation methods available. A manual agent installation. In the scope of management, on the right-hand side, you can see a download agent. Or you may find a list of agents and download the required one. And this is going to be in the form of a zip format. So you can extract it and use a batch file in order to install the agent manually. You may also copy that folder into a network share. So when you get a new computer, you may be able to install it or copy the agent and then install it manually on the required computers. If you have a Active Directory based in an environment, you can leverage the GPU policy. By configuring the GPU policy, agent can be pushed out to all the computers. And even when you get a new computer, the GPU policy can push the agent to the newly added computers. So these are the major three types of agent installation methods available. So now I have added a domain and a work group and installed the agent on the local LAN. And there are two other remote offices. San Francisco, assume that I have 90 computers in this remote office. And in the New York, I have 900 computers. The San Francisco has a good internet connection, so I don't have to worry about bandwidth optimization. However, the New York contains 900 computers, even for the agent installation or deploying any application or patch. So I may have to think about the bandwidth utilization. The performing a deployment directly to all 900 computers may cause a bottleneck on the network. So in order to handle this situation, there is a component called distribution server. The distribution server helps optimizing a bandwidth, and that is, it is a piece of software that can be installed on a Windows operating system, and you need to have a dedicated machine. So based on this diagram, I have two networks, and I'm going to set up a remote office with the distribution server. And San Francisco is going to be a direct communication. So how I'm going to add the wide area network. And they're also connected in the same network via site-to-site VPN connection or fiber optics. So let me take you to the portal once again. Here's the remote offices under scope of management, and I can add a remote office. So name the remote office here. So first, I'm going to add the San Francisco, where I'm going to choose the direct communication. And there are 90 computers available in this remote office. And I trust the remote control settings are explained to you in the previous training program. Now for installing an agent, I can find the option Install WAN Agent automatically and choose the credentials. Even if you would like to have a different credentials for each remote office, you can also add a credentials for each and every remote office and choose a required one when adding a remote office. As I mentioned, there are two separate remote offices, however connected with the headquarters. So based on these credentials, the desktop central can remotely install the agent on the San Francisco remote site. Now I can add the computers. I can browse, find the list of the computers and add it, or I can import it using a CSV file and add a remote office. As soon as I add a remote office, it is going to add those computers to the portal and then install the agents remotely. As I don't have any issues with the bandwidth on our San Francisco, then I'm performing a direct communication when adding a remote office. Now I would like to add a New York remote office contains 900 computers. So for an example, I want to deploy a software which is 10 meg. And if I deploy it to the New York remote office without the distribution server, and 900 computers go to download this 10 meg of this particular software, it is going to be a huge bandwidth utilization. It should be definitely a problem. So now by configuring a distribution server, I can make the download just one time. Agent machine sitting on the New York remote office going to download it from the distribution server itself. So we don't use the connectivity between the New York and then the desktop central server. So this way, using a distribution server, we can optimize the bandwidth. So when adding a remote office, now I'm going to choose a distribution server. As I mentioned earlier, you need to have a dedicated distribution server and have a static IP address. And it can also be installed on an existing Windows operating system. However, the machine needs to be available all the time in order to serve the clients. We may also consider the distribution server as a local repository in each remote site, wherever required. So regardless of deploying a patches or software, and it automatically replicates at the back end. You don't have to do any replication manually. It automatically replicates to the required distribution server based on the target you choose. How about controlling the bandwidth? So in case I have more than two remote offices and there is a site with a very low bandwidth. Here we have a replication policy. You can add policy with a name and limit the data transfer rate. And this is for distribution server and agent downloads. The agent uses particular speed in order to download it, so it does not optimize or it does not use a full bandwidth in downloading the binaries. And you can just leave it in the default replication interval. And here is a place where you can configure the frequency and the days that you wanted to replicate. So based on this, the deployments or any patch or software will be replicated. Now there are two options provided to me: install distribution server automatically and install WAN agents as well. So now the first installation is going to be a distribution server installation based on the credentials I choose and add the computers for this New York remote office. Agents will be pushed out via distribution server. Even for the agent installation, we are saving the bandwidth. So now we are sure how multiple sites can be added as a wide area network, and then it can be managed via Desktop Central. And now we have a roaming users, a salespeople who travels across the globe. How can I manage the roaming users? The notification server, it is also one of the essential components, but you don't have to configure anything related to the notification server because by default, the notification server will be installed when the server installation takes place. And the notification server used for on-demand operations. Let's say you are initiating a remote control or manual scan task or deploy immediately. The notification server will have a live connection with all the computers in order to alert the agent that you have some kind of a task that needs to be done. The notification server is one of the important components. Now, in order to manage the roaming users or mobile devices, they are on the internet. Now, I have to expose the desktop central server on the internet, so it is going to be publicly available. It may lead into security threats. Maybe my company is not willing to allow this. For this purpose, we have an optional component called Secure Gateway. It is also called as a forwarding server. And this component can be installed on a Windows operating system, and you can host it on a DMZ. Now, the roaming users and mobile devices will be redirected to the Secure Gateway, and all the agent communication will be initiated via Secure Gateway. And by configuring a Secure Gateway, you don't lose any functionality. You can perform any on-demand operations. Now, my company is happy because my desktop central server is not exposed on the internet. And moreover, I can block the restriction of accessing the portal on the internet. So the portal is allowed only within the network, within these three offices, in the headquarters, San Francisco, and New York. What if I have a majority of computers on the internet and I would like to have a desktop central that needs to be installed on the cloud? The desktop central is available in Azure and AWS Marketplace. You can create an instance and then distribute the agents in order to manage the roaming users. We are very soon going to be releasing our cloud-based platform for the desktop central, as well as a Zoho Cloud, in order for you to create an instance and host the desktop central server. Here you may find a list of ports used by the desktop central agents or communication. And you have a 8020 and 8383. This is used for agent communication. So you can enable the communication type, whether it needs to be an HTTP or HTTPS. The notification server runs on the port 8027. These are the two mandatory ports that needs to be open on the firewall. However, there are some other functionalities included in the desktop central. So if you wanted to take an advantage of these functionalities, then you have to enable the other ports listed here. And all the communication is going to be inbound to the server. I'm talking about after installing an agent, the agent uses the inbound connection. If you would like to know more details about the ports, you can use the www.desktopcentral.com/ports. That's going to provide the detailed ports related information. The Desktop Central agent uses a 90-minute refresh policy in order to handle the load on the server. Let's take three different scenarios. A network contains 90 computers. Another network contains 900. The third one contains 9,000 computers. This 90-minute refresh policy helps us performing a deployment based on the agent communication. Assume that the first network, an average of the 90 minutes refresh policy, you can expect one machine communicating to the desktop central server per minute. On the second instance, it's going to be 10 computers communicating per minute. On the network of 9,000 computers, it is going to be 100 computers. So now this helps in performing the operations smoothly. So now we are on to the topic. Why configurations? As an IT admin, there are various tasks assigned in terms of managing computers. Our aim in Desktop Central is automating the daily administrative task, so all the actions can be done from this central location. Recently, You heard there are a lot of incidents pertaining to the data breaches and then vulnerability issues. When something similar rises, it is not easy as an administrator to access each and every computer individually and fix it. An ideal solution should be performing these tasks from the central location itself. Now let's understand how this can be achieved via Desktop Central. I'm an administrator. Assume that in my organization hires a new employee and it's on the monthly basis. And I may have a lot of requirements when a new user joins the organization, and I would like to configure a different settings on the computer. Assume that one of the configuration is printer deployment. We are also going to talk about the other configurations. Configuring printer to a new user. How can I achieve this using Desktop Central? Here's a portal. Now I'm going to access the Configurations tab at the very top. And here is a configuration for Windows. And if you take a look at this screen, there are more than 30 configurations supported. And now for this deployment, I'm going to use the IP printer configuration, or I'm going to deploy the printer on the new user. Now I can see there are two options available when I wanted to deploy an IP printer. It's just going to be user or computer configuration. The user configuration helps in deploying the configuration to a specific user. And even if the user logs on onto the other computer, the configuration is still good and it will be executed onto the new machines as well. Whereas the computer configuration just works for that particular computer. If the user logs on onto another computer, so he may not have those configurations. So now I'm going to choose the user configuration and name the configuration here. And under Add, Configure IP Printer, I can enter the IP address or display name, and there are optional fields available. If you want to override the IP printer, if it does already exist, and also I want to set it as a default printer. So I'm going to enable it and enter the details here. Now, configuring printer is nothing but installing the drivers. If you install the drivers, the printer is available for the use. So the driver can be installed in three different ways. You can add a new driver package via executable or zip format. You can upload it, and the drivers can be installed on the target user machines. Or if the drivers are already installed on the computer, then I'm going to find the driver name from the driver properties and then use it here. If the network printer is available and it is also shared, and I can browse to the printer path. And once I have entered the printer path here, even if you don't get anything on the browse, you can just access it using a Windows Explorer, find the driver, and copy the UNC path that is available at the very top. And then add the name along with it. So this is a simple way. If you're unable to browse it, you can also get it from the Windows Explorer. Well, what if the shared network printer is on the different domain or workgroup? Now I can choose the credentials, because if it is on the different domain or workgroup, this machine may not be able to access the share. Now I can select the credentials. Or if I want to add more printers, I do have an option for that. So the first one is added, then I can add the next one. So I can keep on adding multiple printers for a single deployment. I'm going to select the domain. And then, so right now, I'm going to achieve deploying printer to a new user. Choose a user and then target the user here. So when I deploy this configuration, as it is a user-based configuration, this configuration will be executed on the 90 minutes refresh policy. So any user-based configuration will be executed based on the agent refresh cycle, which is going to be 90 minutes. So now we are all familiar how a printer deployment can be done to a new user. What if I wanted to configure the printer for a group of computers? Let's say there are new users, and it's going to be 10 or 20, and I would like to deploy printer to all the computers in the group. So is there any provision for that in Desktop Central? Yes. So now I have to create a group so that I can target the group name. A machine's part of the group can perform the deployments. There are different ways in targeting the groups. The first one is going to be creating a custom group. When I create a custom group, there are three different categories available: static, static unique, and dynamic. The static is a manual mechanism. You're going to name the group and select the domain or work group and find the computers. So when you get a new computer, you can add the computers manually to this list. The static unique. A computer part of a group, it cannot be part of another group. And this is mainly used for user administration when you add multiple technicians to the portal for managing a different remote offices. And you would like to assign a specific remote office or a group to that particular technician. So creating a group would be using a static unique. That's where it's mainly used, under user administration. I like the dynamic group because it is an automated process based on the criteria. Now I can filter the computers based on the criteria. And based on this computer name, I would like to filter and create a group. And the criteria includes equal, not equal, contains. So now I can enter the value and create a group. Once a group is created, I want to deploy the same IP printer to 20 computers. So I'm going to select the configuration for Windows, and now I'm going to target the computer configuration. So name the configuration here. And again, the similar entries for the printers. However, I can target the domain or remote office. So the purpose of providing two different options, because the machine has to be either part of a domain or it is also part of a remote office, which is within the Desktop Central. If you would like to deploy something globally to all the computers, regardless of the site or remote office, you can go with the domain. Or if you wanted to deploy something related to a specific remote office, or even you can use all the remote offices and apply to a specific group that I have created. Again, so I have these remote offices, so all the computers are part of these remote offices. Again, I get a better option to select all the remote offices, and machines part of the group that I have selected. Let's say I have 20 computers in this particular group. So when I deploy this configuration, so these configurations will be executed onto the target machine. And I can perform a deploy immediately, or I can use a deploy to perform a deployment based on the 90 minutes refresh policy here. When I deploy immediately, the machine's currently turned on. They're going to get this deployment done for 20 computers. So it is easy for deploying a configuration to a specific group. Also, there are other types of targeting options. If you wanted to target an OU, or dynamic custom group, or 80 groups, so there are options provided for that as well. So it is very easy for you to target the computers. Based on configuration as collections, so because we have seen one configuration, printer deployment, but there could be other set of configurations I wanted to deploy to the new user or to a group of computers. So it is very difficult to create a configuration each and every time I need it. So using collections, I can add multiple configurations together. So you would find the collection under the configurations tab. You can either use a user collection or computer configuration. Depends on the type of configurations you wanted to deploy. You may not be able to combine both, so it has to be user or computer. Now, I would like to perform the deployment and configure the browser setting and display settings. Also, I wanted to map the drive, create a Wi-Fi profile. As it is a new user, so I need to provide a set of instructions to configure all of these. So instead, if I'm going to automate this process, and it is very easy for me, and I don't have to worry about what is going on with the employee. So I'm going to name the collection and choose the configuration. So when I selected the configurations, and all the configurations are added under Define Collection. And now I'm going to choose the browser settings first, configure the browser, and enable the required browser settings. I can add a home page. If I have a website for my organization, I can also enter. So this home page can be added. So I'm going to just choose a home page right now. And now it's going to be display settings. I do not want to allow the user to change the wallpaper. At the same time, I want to disable it. So there shouldn't be any wallpaper. So now I can configure the settings in here under the display settings. And I will also map a specific shared drive for all the users. And I can choose the drive name and then resource to be mapped. I can browse a specific network share and then add it here. And then I can name the drive, drive label here. And the preference is going to be skip mapping if drive already exists to override the existing drive, or disconnect all the existing network drives before mapping a new one. And now it's going to be creating Wi-Fi profiles. I can create or delete a profile. I can add it. For the first time, I'm going to create a profile. And I enter the credentials and other security settings required, and I can choose Start this connection automatically. So user is not required to configure all of the settings, so I'm going to remotely configure this on behalf of the new joining. Based on this, I can configure all these configurations together in one single collection, and I can deploy in a single shot. Again, I find it a similar option for targeting, so choose the required computers. Since I have selected the user group, the user configuration or collection, now I find an option of targeting a custom group for this specific. And this way, I can deploy a collection to a group of computers. Turbocharge Windows 10 experience using registry hacks. So we have seen the configurations. Also, there are hidden tricks comes handy for every IT administrator. There are certain registry hacks available for optimization to get a better user experience. So let's take this example. Adding your own apps to the menu for the Windows 10. If it is not configured, the user needs to go to multiple folders and then choose a specific executable. So using a registry hacks, I can map a specific executable or maybe application onto the menu bar. And automatically delete the page file.sys I've shut down. So what is page file.sys? It is a virtual RAM, and this is used to store the unused programs related information. And the size of the page file is going to be equivalent to the RAM that is physically installed on the computer. So deleting this file will get a better performance, and we can make the shutdown faster. And disabling the Windows startup delay. Certain applications require a tiny delay during a system startup in order to run the program smoothly without any interruption. If you don't have any applications on the network that requires a Windows startup delay, you can disable that. So all these things can be performed using a registry hack. how can I deploy those registry entries or configurations? And I'm going to choose the configuration for Windows. And here's the registry for user and computer. The user allows us to access the current class, and there are other types of header key, and I can manually add the value or import it. And when importing, I can use the HTTP. That is the best way. You can just upload it and deploy it. Using a network share may require um, permission. So better you can use HTTP if you are going to import any registry file. So now I can add a subkey and data type and values, and then target the users. As I've selected the user configuration, now I can only target the users. Now, when I'm going to access the computer registry configuration, it's going to bring up the HKey local machine. So I can perform adding or deletion within this HKey LM. So this way I can make use of the registry hacks and bring a better user experience. So the end user, or maybe the user, would be happy by doing all of this. Configuring templates to secure desktop. So Desktop Signal provides 50 predefined templates. It's more than 50 predefined templates. Also, another template type is going to be user-defined. So what does a user-defined do? So let's say I have set up configurations, and I do not want to modify the existing one, or I need to create the configurations all the time. But if I create a template by adding all the required details, so when I wanted to install it on the required machines, I don't have to come back here and then choose the configurations and add all the details and then deploy it. Rather, for the first time, I create or enter all the details, and then I can save it as a template. And when I save the template, and it is going to be available in the user-defined templates. Since it already contains all the information, then I can just go and create a configuration and deploy it. So it's very easy for me to create a template, which is really useful for me to install or configure the new computers or maybe existing computers. So in this predefined templates, from the security standpoint, and I would like to consider auto-locking PCs. And it has to be user category, which is already available for you. You don't have to add any registry values for the predefined templates. And if you would like to change the value, just going to be a 60 seconds, which is the default one, what we provide. And if you would like to increase auto-locking PCs to 10 minutes or 20 minutes, you can increase based on the seconds. You're just going to modify and then target the computers and deploy this configuration. And there are other configurations available for you to easily create and then deploy straight away by targeting the computers or users. Now, the USB device management. So USB devices are inevitable. And every device, we have phones, all the phone devices are going to be connected to the computers to transfer the data using a USB devices. So everyone has a mobile devices now. So it is inevitable. So how we are going to control the USB device usage? Maybe my network or organization can be banking sector, maybe health sector. So I need to ensure that there is no data loss prevention. I need to prevent the data loss. Ensure that it is restricted and users are not going to copy any files to their device using a USB. Now here there are three different scenarios. Block USB in all computers. And under configurations, I have a secure USB. And this secure USB can be applied to the user or computer, depends on the need. So for an example, you have the organization provides laptops or computer for each and every employee. So they're not going to share the other computer at any time. The second scenario is going to be an organization which is going to have a computer and shared by different employees based on their shift timing. So now in this case, So multiple users may be logging into the computer. Considering these two scenarios, I can make use of this deployment. Either I wanted to prefer the user or whether I wanted to go for the computer. As I mentioned, I'm going to block all the USB devices. The major USB device types are going to be disk drive, portable devices, and then image. If you wanted to know what is disk drive, here we have a question mark next to that. You can just click on it and you can find the detailed information. So what it is, what is disk drives? USB drives, external hard disk, and virtual drives. They are considered as a disk drive. By selecting block, you're blocking these types of devices connecting to the computers. They won't even get detected. So this way, I can ensure that so none of the employees or users are going to connect or use any USB devices. What about allowing users, only managers, to use the USB devices? Because I would like to exclude the managers in this deployment. So now, when I block all three devices, all three device types, I can now choose a target. And after targeting a particular remote office or domain, I can exclude the managers. Here I can choose a custom group, and managers can be excluded. So this way, the USB is blocked on all the computers except for managers. And ensures managers are using only the encrypted devices. And again, it's very simple. I can create two separate configurations. So one is to block along with the exclusion, so managers don't get any configurations. And create another configuration with the exclude devices. And when I exclude, I get three different options. I can get the device instance ID from the device manager, or I can get it from the inventory. Or if I wanted to exclude a specific vendor, I can also choose that option, or exclude all the encrypted devices. And this recognized the BitLocker. So a device which is encrypted via BitLocker is supported right now. So my criteria is allowing only the encrypted devices. I can choose this, and I can add the criteria in the exclusion, and the targeting and managers is going to allow the managers to use only the encrypted devices. So now you should be thorough and understanding about controlling the legacy and modern management. As I explained it before, the legacy management focus on computer deployments, and the modern management deals with the user deployments. So now we are familiar how it can be achieved using desktop central configurations. Scenarios and solutions. How can I protect my endpoints against browser-based vulnerabilities? So now let me go to the configurations, and we have a configuration for browser, which is applicable only to the user. I'm going to add all the browser settings. I'm going to enable all the browsers. So these are the browsers that is supported on the browser configuration. And I can configure the general settings, proxy, whether I want to enable it or disable or leave it the way it is right now. Restrictions, so, cookies and extensions plays a vital role in bringing the vulnerabilities onto the network, because a browser is again one of the important components which we cannot ignore when using a computers. So if you would like to control it on the Microsoft Edge specific settings, and you can restrict installing the extension and cookies. And accessing about flags. So what is about flags? By accessing the about flags, the end user can modify the developer settings and experimental features such as adding or removing functionalities. So this way you can ensure that it is not allowed for the end user. From the security side, you can enable the trusted sites and restricted sites. So when adding a restricted site, and if that site contains a valid security certificate, And regardless it is added to the restricted sites, the user will still be able to add it because of the trusted site, trusted certificate installed or used on that particular website. And also you can make use of the Windows Defender Smart Screen, and it is going to alert based on the actions performed on the computers for these settings via Microsoft Edge specific settings. So now the advanced settings. So we tend to store the password, also don't clear the cache. This is also one of the vulnerability. If someone attacks it, they may be able to get this information and they can use it anywhere. So if you would like to store or do not allow the user to have the cache, then you can disable that as well. So based on this, I can ensure that the browser settings are configured and I'm away from any vulnerabilities. We completely rely on Desktop Central for system management, and we cannot afford downtime. What should we do? You can use a failover server. It is an additional component. And you can have a primary and secondary server. And you have a database and file system, which is nothing but a repositories hosted in the remote computer, like a network share. It is commonly available for both this primary and secondary server. So when the primary goes down, and the secondary server will serve the clients, regardless of the other server is down. So this way, you can ensure that the server is available all the time, even if there is any failure on the primary one. So we have thousands of configurations in Desktop Central, and it becomes unmanageable. Is there a way out? So down the line, after using the Desktop Central configuration for 6 months or 7 months, you may see a lot of configurations created. So using the configuration settings, I can delete the configurations which is not used for 30 days. Or if they are not retrieved back from the trash, I can permanently delete it. After 30 days, I cannot retrieve it from the trash. So based on this, the unused application can be cleaned up automatically based on the settings. Also, as I mentioned earlier, if you need certain set of configurations that you would like to have all the time and deploy it, don't get confusion out of 1,000 configurations, then make use of the templates. Create the user-defined templates. Save all the templates, and whenever required, you can use the templates. Some of our computers go unmanaged quite often. Is there a way to fix this? So what are the possibilities? Why the machines needs to go unmanaged? Because the user may uninstall the Desktop Central agent. So removing the agent is the only option where we cannot control this computer. Or the user may stop the services. So how can we control that? So using the admin and agent settings, I can restrict the users from uninstalling the control panel or stopping the service. So this way, they don't get any options in doing these actions. It is painful to redeploy all the configurations each time. We hire an employee add computer to our network. Is there a way out? So let's say for the first time, you have to configure all of these. That is acceptable. But later on, when I add a new user or when a new user joins the organization, how can I automate and deploying the created configurations to the new computers or new users? So configure the settings under the configurations here. So when the computer or user is added to the OU group, also there are 2 other different groups available. Even if this also works for domain, remote office, and custom group. So when a machine becomes part of any of these groups, and any configuration that is deployed previously, and if it is still active, and those configurations can be executed automatically onto the newly added computers. Just configure the settings and leave the way as it is, and ensure that you add the computer to a specific group. Focus on certain groups. Do not make use of all the groups. That may also lead into another confusion. So ensure that you use a certain group for all the time. So this way, as soon as a machine is added to an OU, and when deploying a configuration, as I shown earlier, you can target a specific OU, and the configuration is going to automatically get executed on the newly added computers. So I want Desktop Central to use available system resources effectively for improved performance. What should I do? To gain a better performance, I have a lot of resources on the Desktop Central instance. So I can optimize the database operations by increasing the memory. So based on this, I can get a better performance. So these business data breaches and cyber attacks are fearsome. Can Desktop Central configuration be of some help? Yes. As we all know, the Ghost script, which was known by everyone on the internet. A Ghost script, by using the script or a program that leverages the Ghost script to parse a specifically crafted file, a remote unauthenticated attacker may be able to execute arbitrary commands with the privilege of the Ghost script code. This action may be triggered with actions as simple as downloading a file from the website. This is one of the examples, and we also heard about other vulnerabilities like disabling the SMB. From the vendor, it may take a couple of days or week to release fixes for these types of vulnerabilities. As a Desktop Central team, we work hard in order to find a workaround, an alternate solution meantime, and fix those vulnerabilities on all the workstations. So how it can be done, or how a Desktop Central team can do this. So using a script, we can achieve this. We can use a script to perform any actions as long as the script is tested and working. Here are the templates. So we are supporting more than 200 scripts. You can search here under the templates, and I have the executable or the configuration is already available in the templates for me, so I can create and deploy it in order to fix this Ghost script vulnerability. This is an example, but you can monitor the patch management and security news. If there is any new vulnerability announced globally, and we take responsibility from our side and explore about that vulnerability and then add certain details in our blogs or in the forum, and you're also notified from the patch management. I need to keep track on asset data even when I'm away from my desk. Is this possible? Yes, using the mobile apps. From the admin tab, you have a mobile app, and it can be installed on Android and iOS devices with the server details provided here. So once it is configured, so you can access the Desktop Central related information like inventory or patch summary details, and you can keep a track on asset details all the time on the go. So now we are into the questions. Does Desktop Central allow you to block USB devices for particular IP range? Let's take for an example. It may be difficult to target based on the computer names, but I know this particular remote site uses this specific IP range, or within the remote office, I have 3 different subnets. So based on this, and I would like to restrict or apply this configuration based on the IP range. And I create a configuration for user or computer. Now I can choose and apply the filter, and here I get an option of targeting based on IP range. So this way I can deploy a configuration to a specific IP range or IP address. Can website security certificates be deployed to workstation and to multiple browsers? Yes. Desktop Central supports in deploying certificates. We have a configuration available for that. To create the configuration here, and choose a store and browse the certificate file, and you may find the supported formats, and enter the password if that certificate requires any credentials, and then target it and deploy this in order to install any certificate. Some keyboards and monitors have embedded USB ports. Will those ports also be blocked despite having the keyboard and mouse options excluded from the block? I would say no, because the embedded USB has a unique hardware ID. So regardless of if this is embedded USB device, even though the keyboard and mouse are excluded, this embedded such devices will be blocked. So when does the configuration get deleted? Is it based on the status of the configuration? As I explained before, based on the cleanup setting, the configurations are deleted. It's not about the status. How GDPR compliant is Desktop Central? So Desktop Central is modified in such a way it is compliant to GDPR, and you have a privacy settings to find a concern. And if you would like to deny certain consent, yes, you can do that. And right to erasure. So whenever a technician is deleted, a Desktop Central will not retain any personal data such as email, and only the technician name alone will be stored for auditing purpose. Also, export settings available for personal identifiable information. It also comes under GDPR. So when exporting the reports or when scheduling the report, you need to configure this in order to have the personal information on the reports, or you wanted to mask it. The Desktop Central is compliant to the GDPR. And how to check the security levels of my Desktop Central server? The Desktop Central provides a security settings. So there is a bar provided that explains how secure is the Desktop Central server is. So you can enable the login detailed and agent communications related settings in order to increase a percentage for this Desktop Central security. Is there a way to optimize the power consumption levels in my network computers? Yes, definitely. We have a configuration for that, which is power management under Windows configuration. I can create user or computer depends on the operating system. And I can create a scheme, modify, or delete a scheme, which is on the existing computer. So when it is connected on the power, or when it is running on the battery, then I can configure these power settings. Based on this, it is going to act. So I can remotely create a power scheme and apply it. So when the machine is idle, and the user is logged off and not turning off the computer, so we can turn off the computer based on idle time. So this helps you in saving the power. What happens to the configuration if any of the target computers are down? Don't have to worry about this, because as soon as the computer becomes available, and the deployed configuration will be automatically executed, even if it is a delay of 2 hours or maybe a day, so you don't have to worry about it. For the computers currently turned off. My user has deleted the desktop shortcut. Should I redeploy the configuration? I would say no, because we have an option in each and every configuration listed here. And when deploying a configuration, use the execution settings, which is an optional one. And you may apply this configuration at every system startup. So let's assume I created a shortcut configuration and I have enabled this option, even if the user deletes it. And I can ask a user to reboot the computer. It automatically pushes up the shortcut. So I just need to enable this option, ensure that it redeploys during the system startup. All right, so now we are at the end of this presentation. So rate is on a scale of 1 to 5, where the 5 is the best. And if you think this training program is helpful, you can spread the word on social medias. And the next training scheduled on June for the patch management. So we'll come up with the new scenarios and solutions in terms of patching. So EM is on the world tour, so you can make use of the events, upcoming events on June and July on different locations, US, Singapore, Indonesia, and South Africa. Once again, I thank you all for joining this training. And have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.